Number 8. Prison for Demons. Could an ancient relic known as a Faustian cross be evidence of a pact made between a troubled person and the devil? During the Roman Inquisition, a Protestant family was in turmoil. They believed their son was possessed, and as a result, he suffered terrifying hallucinations because of the ordeal. The desperate family contacted 3 priests who visited them over 4 months, holding religious sessions in an effort to protect the young man from the demon possessing him. But their efforts didn't work, and the young man continued to deteriorate, even after going through multiple exorcisms every week. As the priests became more desperate, they reached out to the Vatican, asking them to make a special receptacle to capture the demon known as a Faustian cross. In Christianity, this type of cross is blessed with holy water and inscribed with religious writings that are supposed to weaken the demon so it can be exorcised and trapped inside a central compartment. Armed with the cross, the priest returned to the family, and using the mirrors, they conducted another exorcism. This time, they were successful, and when the demon manifested, they captured it inside the cross and locked it inside. Sadly though, there was no happy ending. The young man's mother passed away a few days after the exorcism was complete. Only then did the priest find out that she was a practicing witch who made a pact with the demon, offering her child's soul as a sacrifice. After the shocking revelation, the priest took the imprisoned demon, leaving the family to try and pick up the pieces. It is now imprisoned in the Italian town of Balestrino, where it was given to a man named Lorenzo by his grandfather. Despite its bizarre discovery, the man accepted the strange gift, believing it will protect him. One can only hope that the cross is powerful enough to keep the evil demon from harming anyone else. What do you think of this story? Did a woman actually make a pact with the devil that caused the demon to possess her son? Tell me your theories in the comments. Number 7. Yeti DNA shocker. For decades, rumors and reported sightings of a strange non-human creature have come from the United States and Western Canada. Some people in the Himalayas believe they too have a hairy ape-like creature, and now scientists think they have the DNA to prove it. The first reported sightings of the mythical creature in North America came in 1811 when a British explorer named David Thompson found a set of strange footprints in the Rocky Mountains. Hearing stories about an 18-foot tall creature who lived in the woods and was so tall it had to lean against a tree to take a nap led Thompson to believe the unusually large tracks he spotted during his trek belonged to that very creature. A similar being known as a Yeti, also called the Abominable Snowman, is said to live in the Himalayan mountains, the range that separates the plateau of Tibet and India, and a recent find could be proof the mythical creature is real. The discovery of 2 sets of mummified remains, one in the region of Ladakh 40 years ago and another near Bhutan just 10 years ago, provided a unique opportunity for researchers to perform DNA tests on hair samples of the creatures. After comparing them to an international collection of gene sequences of known species, scientists found they were a 100% match to a sample taken from an ancient polar bear jawbone found in Norway from between 40,000 to 120,000 years ago. Could the famed Yeti be an ancient bear? At the time this animal lived, the polar bear was separating from the brown bear into different species. Now, scientists think the mummified animal is a subspecies of the brown bear, which is descended from the ancient polar bear. Scientists were shocked and understandably excited at the discovery. The fact that a descendant of the ancient animal was walking around as recently as 10 years ago shows how species they thought had gone extinct still live today. But how does that connect to the legend of the Yeti? Experts think the mummified animals were hybrid animals with behavior patterns that are different from normal bears, and could be why, when people spot these elusive animals acting in ways they don't understand, they chalk their encounter up to the Yeti legend. Using science to explain the Bigfoot legend might ruin a bit of the illusion of a mythical creature. Then again, most sightings of the creature have been debunked with hair samples determined to be from elk, bears, or cows, and most videos are either inconclusive or hoaxes. But if you want to try and spot a Yeti on your own, you don't necessarily have to head to the Himalayas either. A new map charts where all the alleged Bigfoot sightings have occurred in North America, with over 3,000 sightings mostly concentrated on the east and west coasts between 1921 and 2012. there are plenty of places to travel to in search of the mysterious creature. Do you believe Bigfoot exists? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Number 6. Noble Burial Site in Turkey. A necropolis found in eastern Turkey is offering insight into the mysterious lives of royals who once ruled during the 9th century BC before they mysteriously disappeared 3 centuries later. After unearthing the hidden burial ground, archaeologists team up with anthropologists and art historians to remove and restore the area, hoping to gain more insight into the ancient civilization. As the team excavated the 538 square foot area, they found the final resting place of Urartian aristocrats, people from the mountainous region between the Black and Caspian Seas in modern-day Armenia, Turkey, and Iran. 2 skeletons, 1 male and 1 female, were uncovered, as well as priceless jewelry and a belt emblazoned with mythological creatures. The discovery was near the Çavuştepe castle that was built in 750 BC by King Sardar II on a mountain in Turkey's Van province by the Urartu people, Middle Eastern political powers during the 9th and 8th centuries BCE until they were succeeded by the Armenians. Before the Urartians disappeared into thin air, they undertook many impressive architectural projects, including an irrigation canal that brought much needed water to the area, an ornate temple decorated with etchings of lions. As archaeologists worked to unearth the skeleton, they were stunned to realize the 20 to 25-year-old woman was buried wearing priceless pieces of jewelry, including bracelets on both wrists and pendulum earrings. Researchers think a bronze ring on her left hand is the earliest archaeological evidence that ancient cultures had prenuptial agreements. The extravagant adornments, which also include a brooch and a necklace made with semi-precious stones, lead experts to believe the woman is most likely a noblewoman, as only the higher-class Urartians would have had enough money to afford such items. Seeing such wealth on the noblewoman makes us wonder why the Urartians disappeared after obviously having such power and wealth. Could it be their location in the mountainous province of Van? Or were they not just strong enough to overcome repeated attacks from other nations who wanted their land? Experts hope to answer that question as they continue exploring the area, and with multiple different burial styles found at the site, some covered neatly with stones and other urn vaults covered haphazardly, it'll take some time to piece together the real truth about this nation that vanished before their time. Number 5. Mummified dogs. Ancient Egyptians are known for placing importance on various animals, including the cat. The cat goddess Bastet is a well-known goddess of the house and home, with many temples and festivals in her honor. Now, experts have uncovered a burial that shows another animal that seems to have left a lasting impression on its owners. An expert on mummies recently conducted a study on 2 large ceramic pots unearthed in 2009, a large mud brick structure in Abydos. Inside, they found the mummified remains of 2 dogs who were curled up inside the 3,000-year-old pots. If you thought this was a unique discovery, you'd be right. Sure, there are countless mummified dogs in dog cemeteries scattered around Egypt, but this was the first time archaeologists have unearthed dogs mummified and placed in burial jars. As experts studied the dogs, they gave them nicknames, calling one Houdini, who was so large they couldn't figure out how the dog was even placed inside the jar. Both had their fur mostly intact, but Houdini's fur was longer and had a brown auburn color that was very different when compared to other dogs at the time. The fur had also been coated by oil or resin that experts think was done to help preserve the animal. He was about 5 years old when he died, and because of the way he was buried and the fact that he was found at Abydos, which was built in 2750 BC and dedicated to a 2nd dynasty king, researchers think he held the position of a sacred animal. More examination will help experts to see how the dogs were sealed and buried in their jars in the same way mummies are preserved in the hopes their spirits would live for an eternity. Number 4. Ancient church mosaics. The remains of a church hidden in southeastern Turkey, discovered in late 2019, are being excavated, and already stunning hidden treasures have been uncovered. The ruined 5th century church has worn away by weather and time, but some of its gorgeous floor mosaic has survived for 1600 years. It was built in 366 AD in Goktas village in Mardin, the capital city in the Turkish province that sits on a rocky hill near the Tigris River. Previously known for the architectural structure of its old city, Mardin has a new reputation. Now, researchers are getting their first glimpse at the decorative depictions of animals, geometric ornaments, and human figures shown in hunting scenes. Some of the figures also have the months April and June written on them. Clues to who created the breathtaking mosaic are literally written in stone, with 9 lines of text hidden in the design. Written in Estrangelo, which is the language of ancient Syria, a list of names pays tribute to the men who constructed the church building. More evidence of the church's history were also uncovered when archaeologists found a set of forms that detailed public performances of religious worship, offering insight into what went on during 5th century religious rites of local Christians. The church was built on top of the mosaic base in the basilica plan, which was a style used in Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox churches, where a large open hall had side aisles and a raised platform at either end. For those who want to see the historic site and breathtaking work that went into its mosaic tiles, archaeologists are restoring the site so they can showcase the ancient church and its treasures. Number 3. Vampire graves in Bulgaria. Archaeologists working in Bulgaria have unearthed a bizarre ancient Middle Ages ritual tied to the undead. A skeleton located at Perperikon, a site where various religious rites took place about 7,000 years ago, was uncovered with an iron stake plunged through its chest. Coins that archaeologists found with the body dated to around the 13th and 14th centuries. If you thought this was a unique find, you'd be partly right. It's definitely strange, but it's not the first body found this way. Throughout Bulgaria, over 100 people have been found buried similarly, and they are all men. Evidence of the pagan rite has also been found in nearby Serbia and other Balkan countries. So why did ancient Europeans conduct these ritualistic burials? Reports of vampires go back thousands of years and continued as recently as just a few decades ago, with some villages designating one member of the village as a vampire hunter. Those who were afraid their fellow villagers would roam the streets and take more lives used a number of different methods to stop vampires from rising from the grave. Sometimes they would drive iron stakes through their shoulders, virtually pinning the dead to the ground. Other times, terrified villagers would cut off the legs of those they feared, so they couldn't get up and walk around. Shackles, massive boulders, and 8-inch spikes driven through various body parts were used to stop people from leaving their graves after they died. Some bodies have even been found with stones shoved into their mouths to keep them from rising and spreading diseases like the plague into the living. Much of the fear came from the rise of Christianity, as the church depicted vampires as unholy creatures. That, combined with the fear of the unknown, caused some to unfairly target their neighbors, who, even in death, were scapegoats. Evidence of how misunderstood people were treated has now been brought out into the light. And as more are unearthed, it shows how superstition gave rise to these bizarre rituals. Number 2. Egypt's Lost Golden City. For centuries, the Egyptian city of Aten was lost to the sands of time. But when archaeologists finally located the ancient city, they unearthed a number of strange items, some more macabre than others. At the city, the largest ancient dwelling ever found in Egypt, a bizarre skeleton was found with its arms outstretched and a rope tied around its knees. Experts still can't determine how the individual died, but it probably wasn't from hunger. Located at the site, another discovery was of a vessel filled with ancient dried meat. The jar does give a bit of a hint about who the meat was for. An inscription mentions the Hebsed festival, one of the oldest feasts in ancient Egypt that was celebrated after a king ruled for 30 years. The inscription also mentioned year 37, which would have been when King Amenhotep III ruled alongside his son Akhenaten, who later became the king of Egypt's 18th dynasty and established a cult to the sun god Aten. Luckily, the sands of Egypt helped to preserve these items, and as archaeologists continued to excavate, they realized there was an entire network of neighborhoods waiting to see the light of day again. 7 different neighborhoods were located, including residential areas, industrial hubs, and administrative centers that were the backbone of the ancient city. Evidence of metalwork and glassmaking show that Aden was a prosperous city that dated back to the reign of Amenhotep III, one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, who ruled from 1391 to 1353 BC. Even though it was close to Luxor, the capital of the ancient kingdom, rulers Akhenaten and Nefertiti abandoned Aten and moved their empire to Amarna. Only time will tell whether researchers will find clues that will reveal why. Number 1. Knife-wielding Spider God. A group of Peruvian farmers who were working to extend their fields uncovered a shocking artwork on the walls of an ancient temple, once used by the pre-Columbian Cupesnique people for water ceremonies. The temple was built close to a local river, which explains why it was dedicated to water gods. But its mural, depicting a towering spider god holding a knife, is like something experts have never seen. Sadly, the farmers who didn't realize it was there before crashing into it with their machines accidentally destroyed almost half of the temple. Luckily, experts were still able to study what was left, and when they found the spider figure, painted in ochres, yellows, grays, and white, they realized it could have ties to an ancient rite. Experts say the spider was an important animal in pre-Hispanic cultures associated with water. The painting is likely tied to a sacred ancient water ceremony that the Cupesnique culture held between January and March to invoke rain. But the temple isn't the only place the Cupesnique people paid homage to their spider god. Other artifacts recovered in other areas feature images of spiders, who were also associated with fertility, sacrifice, and regeneration. It'll take more time to research the mural, but once researchers are able to find out more about it and the people who created it, it will offer even more insight into the ancient art of Peru's first people. These are all incredible and strange historical discoveries. Which one did you find most intriguing?
Number 8. Afghanistan Gold Horde. In the early 1970s, an art restorer named Vladimir Prokofyevich Bury was working in Afghanistan to preserve ancient murals for museums. While he was there, he was approached by an archaeologist named Zafar Kakimov, who asked him to help save a priceless cache of riches before it fell into the hands of the Taliban. While excavating in the ancient city of Bactria, Kakimov discovered multiple undisturbed graves. When they opened the first grave, they found 2,000 pieces of gold jewelry and the skeleton of a girl. He and his team had stumbled upon a royal burial. Kakimov realized he'd found something amazing that needed to be protected. Rumors spread throughout the country of the treasures, and experts had to move quickly to save the items before someone tried to steal them. In total, 6 graves were found inside, and more than 20,000 pieces of gold jewelry along with them. 5 of the bodies were females, and the 6th body was a male warrior. But removing the items was a challenge. If anyone knew what they had found, they would be in trouble. When a Russian who had been helping with the excavation started acting suspiciously, authorities did a little digging of their own, and they were shocked to discover he had stolen a number of the items and hidden them under the mattress in his hotel room. While the police dealt with the thief, archaeologists continued their work. But just as they were about to open up a 7th grave, war broke out in Afghanistan, putting the entire operation and the treasures in jeopardy. The only way to save the priceless items was to pack them in wooden chests, load them into a truck, and hide them under all the other equipment and tents. They headed for the safety of Kabul, all the way worrying that thieves who had heard about the discovery might be waiting for them on the side of the road to steal their treasures. To make things worse, the truck they were in stalled multiple times during the trip. As they neared the city, armed soldiers stopped their truck, demanding to know where Kakimov and Barry were going. Telling them only that they were archaeologists, the men held their breath, watching as the soldiers began to dig through the contents of the truck. Luckily, they gave up before they got to the precious items, estimated to be worth up to $2 million. The men became relic hunting heroes for saving the historical objects. Number 7. Crusader Sword. Shlomi Katzin didn't really expect to find anything when he went diving off the Israeli coastal plain, especially not a priceless treasure. He first spotted something when he went to explore the natural coves around the Carmel coast. He was amazed when he discovered ancient artifacts that had been hidden in the sand for centuries. He'd found a 3-foot-long blade with a foot-long hilt. Buried alongside the sword were stone and metal anchors and pottery fragments. Worried the treasures would be stolen or lost again, Katzin rushed the sword to shore. But there's where the story took a drastic turn. After contacting the head of Israel's antiquities authorities, he was stunned when they told him the items were from the 11th century Crusades. Even though the sword was covered in mollusks and other sea life, it was preserved rather well. Experts identified it as a weapon that once belonged to a Crusader knight. The area's natural coves were once a popular place for ships to wait out harsh weather and storms. Even to this day, more treasures are being unearthed as the sands shift. Multiple discoveries show that ships sought shelter there as early as the late Bronze Age, making it even more important for experts to chart, catalog, and preserve these long-lost antiquities before they disappear with the movement of the sand. Number 6. Medieval Zombies. When researchers were examining a collection of centuries-old human bones in England, they were startled when they came across signs of mutilation. The study revealed that some people in medieval Yorkshire were terrified of the walking dead. Yes, like actual zombies. So to prevent people from turning into zombies, they chopped, smashed, and burned their skeletons to make sure they stayed in their graves. Historic England and the University of Southampton published research that may represent the first scientific evidence in England of attempts to prevent the dead from disturbing the living, still common in stories and legends in many parts of the world. You might think that cut marks found on bones that belong to adults, teenagers, and children would point to the macabre act of cannibalism, but experts were quick to determine that the markings were in the wrong place for the act of butchery. Still, of the 137 pieces of broken bones found in a pit in the village of Warren Percy, archaeologists believe that burn marks and cuts came from another shocking act. At the time the villagers died, locals believed the dead could escape from the graves and walk among the living. A total of 10 bodies were found, with the victims ranging in age from 2 to 50, and all with the same cut marks. In medieval times, people believed those who were cursed or otherwise evil posed a threat. Their solution was to dig up the skeletons, decapitate, and sometimes burn the bodies to prevent the dead from harming the living. In Warren Percy, locals seem to have latched onto this strange belief, mutilating and then burying their dead far from the village in the hopes of saving themselves from undead attacks. After archaeologists analyzed the victims' teeth, they concluded the dead were all villagers from the same town. At one time, Warren Percy was a bustling village, but by the 16th century, it was completely abandoned. No one knows exactly why the residents of Warren Percy treated their fellow villagers this way. Maybe it was superstition. Maybe it was a case of mob mentality or fear of the unknown. Whatever the reason, some of the local residents met a sad fate, one with seemingly sinister motivations. Why do you think the people of the village feared the dead coming back to life so much? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 5. Modern descendants of Ice Age mummy. A recent discovery revealed a modern-day connection to a man who lived between 3350 and 3100 BC. A rare genetic chromosome found in Europe's oldest natural mummy has shocked experts. After studying the 5,300-year-old body of Otzi the Iceman, an ancient man discovered in the Italian Alps in 1991, scientists have found the Neanderthal has living relatives. That's right. In a bit of modern-day sleuthing and some careful research, scientists have found a rare gene that ties the Iceman to people living today. The gene is passed down through the family tree, showing up in the DNA of men only. But when a team of Austrian forensic researchers were studying the genetic makeup of local residents, they didn't expect to find that some of the men in their study were genetically connected to a mummy that had been frozen in a melting glacier for thousands of years. The story for Otzi began in 1991, when 2 German tourists discovered the Ice Age mummy in the Otzel Mountains in the Central Alps. After several days of extensive excavation, authorities removed the body from the ice and took it away for testing. Otzi was incredibly well preserved from being in the ice for so long. Radiocarbon dating is what connected the ancient man to modern times. We can only imagine how the study participants might react to being told they were descendants of an Ice Age mummy. Number 4. Nobleman's tomb in Egypt. An amazing recent discovery in Egypt revealed a stunning collection of priceless funerary artifacts that once belonged to a nobleman. The 3,500-year-old tomb was found in Luxor's West Bank in the Dra Abul Naga necropolis. After removing almost 1,500 feet of debris, a team of archaeologists unearthed the tomb, and inside, they found an open court that led to a rectangular hall and a corridor that emptied into an inner chamber. Not all the treasures were hidden behind closed doors, though. A decorated wooden coffin sat in the middle of the main hall, and corridors leading off from the main hall led to an inner chamber where more treasures awaited. Inside the hidden rooms, researchers found a sarcophagi collection dating to the 21st dynasty with linen-wrapped mummies, multiple carved Ushabti figurines, usually buried with the dead to help them in the afterlife. Clay pots and wooden masks were also found. As experts work to preserve these important ties to Egypt's past, they are learning more about the funerary collection, believing the objects once belonged to a man named Usarhat, who was a local juror and considered a nobleman. He was one of many powerful men in the city who were responsible for law and order in their region. Noblemen were known to live in lush houses along the Nile, overseeing the land where the peasants worked, making them an important part of everyday life in ancient Egypt. Number 3. The Christian Crusaders. In the 11th to 13th centuries, during the medieval Crusades, Christian soldiers battled Muslims with the hopes of controlling the Holy Land of modern-day Israel. Many people died during these battles, something that has become clearer after the recent discovery of 2 mass graves in Lebanon. Archaeologists working near a Middle Eastern castle unearthed the remains of at least 25 soldiers who had been slaughtered. Researchers knew they had stumbled upon something historically important when they realized so many of the bones had wounds you would only get from battles. They did DNA testing of the men's teeth to determine that some were born in Europe. By studying isotopes in their bones, researchers could tell that they all died in the 13th century, and after consulting historical records, experts narrowed down exactly when they died. The bodies were found in a dried moat surrounding the ruins of St. Louis Castle, which had suffered through multiple attacks from the Crusaders since the 11th century. For more than a century, the invaders ruled the area, until multiple attacks in the 13th century destroyed the castle. Since carbon dating matches this time period, archaeologists think they finally uncovered the remains of soldiers who died at one of these battles. All of the bodies had brutal wounds, including stab and slice wounds from swords. Some looked like they'd been run down by horses, and others had blade wounds to the backs of their necks, which indicated they'd been beheaded after being captured. A belt found in the mass grave indicated the men came from the region near modern-day Belgium and France. If that's the case, the soldiers may have been buried by one of France's most famous kings, Louis IX, who was in the Holy Land on a crusade at the same time of the attack, and is one of the most celebrated rulers of his time, later canonized as a saint. It's rare to find any graves from this time period, so if researchers are right, they might have evidence of the brutality of ancient warfare that until now we could only read about in historical records. Number 2. Castle in the USA. Deep in the woods of Chesterfield, New Hampshire, is the ruins of a stone castle just waiting for you to explore its extravagant grounds. Even though the once former medieval castle is now crumbling, remnants of the grand staircase still remain. But who built the mysterious masterpiece, and what happened to it? When an eclectic costume designer from New York named Madame Antoinette Sherry first stepped foot on the gorgeous grounds deep in the New Hampshire countryside, she had a vision of building an extravagant summer home there. Her dream was to host lavish parties for her eccentric group of friends from the city. Originally working for Broadway shows, Madame Sherry got the idea to build a mansion after visiting a friend's home in Chesterfield, New Hampshire. One look at the sprawling farmland and lush forest gave her the idea. After consulting with designers, Sherry's castle was built, with Roman and French influences throughout. Putting her design talents to good use, she decorated the mansion with her own unique flair, draping animal furs on the floor, lining the walls with mirrors, and hanging massive portraits of famous people on the walls. But Madame Sherry didn't live in the mansion itself. When she did go inside, she kept herself confined to the 3rd floor in private quarters that could only be accessed by a stone staircase, the same staircase that is the only surviving part of the unique building. After years of financial problems, The castle was burned to the ground by vandals in the 1960s. Madame Sherry lost everything. She ended up on public assistance before being put into a nursing home, where she died in 1965. Even though her life took a sad turn, the state continues to maintain the property, even if the only thing left to show where the castle once stood is the foundation, the chimneys, and the last remnants of the grand staircase. Number 1. Rare luxury in Cyprus tombs. Archaeologists excavating 2 Bronze Age tombs south of Turkey discovered clues about ancient trade that brought luxury goods to Cyprus. But that wasn't the only thing that they found at the Hala Sultan Teki monument. Known as one of the most important holy sites in the Islamic world, the historic mosque is surrounded by ancient architecture from around 1500 BC. But among the stunning buildings and religious monuments, researchers found 2 tombs containing 155 skeletons and 500 ancient artifacts dating to almost 3,000 years ago. Researchers had to comb through multiple archaeological layers to separate the shattered skeletons from the grave goods. But the painstaking work gave them a better picture of how these ancient people buried their dead, and the grave goods along with them. Among the objects were gold earrings and a golden tiara, all found on the skeleton of a 5-year-old child, leading experts to believe the tomb belonged to a family of the ruling elite. Rare gemstones, decorated vessels filled with wine and gold, silver and bronze artifacts all point them to once belonging to a family of great wealth. Clues that led them to believe the items were from trading with ancient people included scarab beetle amulets and fish bones from species that originated in the Nile Valley, showing connections to Egypt at the time when Queen Nefertiti ruled. As experts continue to study the remains, they are hoping to get a better understanding of how the 155 skeletons were connected and get insight into their cachet of luxury from distant lands.
Number 8. Blood-sucking moths. Everyone knows mosquitoes are bloodthirsty nuisances, but did you know there's a species of moth that also has a taste for blood? A type of moth studied by an entomologist in Siberia gave scientists a bit of a thrill when they witnessed the strange behavior of one particular moth. When one of the scientists held his hand out to catch the moth, it drilled its tongue through the scientist's skin and started drinking his blood. The moth, known as Calyptra thalictri, is a part of a European species that have been found in central and southern countries. But for some reason, the species has evolved, and instead of drinking the nectar from fruit, they have developed a taste for blood. Usually, moths and butterflies use their barbed tongues to pierce the tougher skins of fruit, but researchers now think the male moths drink blood and use the salt as a type of offering to their female counterparts when mating. How interesting. The belief is that the nutrients in the blood will result in larvae that can more easily thrive, with the female passing the sodium onto her eggs, which will get a boost of nutrients until the offspring are born. This is a unique skill for a moth to have. They're able to pierce extremely tough skin like elephants and buffalo, and it isn't a slow task either. They take their time penetrating the skin, rocking their stingers and heads back and forth to push their proboscis in deeper. Small hooks located on the side of the moth's proboscis open the moment they sense blood, anchoring it firmly, where they are able to suck blood for almost an hour. Only the males of the species drink blood though, and even though their bite is only painful and not dangerous, the thought of a moth landing on one's arm and feeding like a mosquito is a little unsettling to say the least. Number 7. Ancient fashion. Fashion has always been a way to express yourself, the colors you wear, the type, style, even the jewelry. This was proven in 2008 when archaeologists discovered ancient snail shell beads in the Bismoun cave in Morocco. It took special uranium series dating to determine their age, but experts dated the beads to be around 150,000 years old. It's believed that the beads were worn the same way people today wear jewelry, as a way to decorate their clothing and to show their personal identity. Not all incredible historical discoveries have to be towering monuments or fossils, but they weren't only decorative. They show how even ancient people used fashion as a way to communicate their own personal style. When researchers took a closer look, they were able to see the shells had small holes that meant they could be worn as jewelry or even hung on strings or sewn into one's clothing. These beads were also found to come from 2 different snail species, making them even more unique. Even though similar beads have been found throughout northern and southern Africa, previous discoveries of similar beads are no older than 130,000 years. Anthropologists are now using the beads to study the evolution of human cognition and when language first appeared in ancient humans. This means the beads could provide clues about how early humans communicated at a time when there was no written language. Number 6. New underwater species. The sands of Egypt aren't the only place on the planet keeping secrets. Even the depths of the ocean still have stories to be told, and scientists working off the coast of Mexico have found a compelling one. While using an underwater robot to explore the depths of the Gulf of California, an international team of scientists found a space on the seafloor where searing hot water spews from 80-foot tall mounds. Using ultra-high-definition videos to collect samples, the experts mapped out the seafloor using a torpedo-shaped robot. It was the only way to explore the dangerous thermal vents, with water that reaches up to 549 degrees Fahrenheit. But these underwater vents weren't the only spectacular find. New species of animals were also discovered at the Pescadero Basin, including one that really steals the spotlight. Apparently, these vents are a breeding ground for diverse organisms that are able to stand the heat. While one team of scientists focused on the geology and chemistry of the thermal vents, another honed in on the diverse organisms, and that's when things got interesting. Among 10 animal species that had never been observed in the Pescadero Basin before, they identified 6 potential new species of crustaceans, mollusks, roundworms, arrowworms, and bristleworms. Among these new creatures, blue scaleworms, which have bright blue iridescent scales, were found around the vent, proving that even in the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, there's something bright to be found. Number 5. Ancient Inland Whale. When the residents of the Samut Sakhon province in Thailand discovered the remains of a strange animal, they didn't realize they had actually unearthed an ancient creature. Located some 7.5 miles inland, the bones turned out to be the skeleton of a prehistoric whale. But how did it get so far inland? And just how old was this massive animal? In November 2020, the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment was told that a whale bone had been found in the region, but even he didn't realize the magnitude of this discovery until a team of scientists was sent to the area to gather more research. It took some time, but scientists were able to determine that the bones belonged to a species of Bruda whale, one that is often seen swimming off the coast in the Gulf of Thailand. Preliminary studies of the bones allowed them to estimate its age to be between 3,000 and 5,000 years old. More research, including a special type of scan known as a carbon-14 study, helped them figure out the animal's true age. As the scientists worked to unearth the massive whale, they ended up uncovering about 80% of the creature in just a few weeks. They found its skull and jaws perfectly intact, with the head measuring almost 10 feet long. This allowed them to estimate the entire length of the whale at around 20 feet, which is a little bit longer than a school bus. With 19 complete vertebrae as well as the shoulder blade and fins all preserved, this inland whale was a remarkable discovery. But it still doesn't explain how the whale got there. It isn't the first whale fossil to be discovered in Thailand, and that's because the Gulf of Thailand had sea levels that were over 13 feet higher in the past 10,000 years. And given the fact that Bruda's whales still swim in the waters around Thailand today, researchers will be able to compare modern whales to their ancient ancestors. Are you surprised to learn that this kind of whale still exists today? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 4. The bright orange bat of Guinea. When asked to describe a bat, chances are you immediately think of a black or brown animal known to take to the skies at night. Well, a new species recently discovered in the Nimba Mountains of Guinea will change your perspective on these nocturnal creatures. Found in West Africa, the Myotis nimbaensis is an astonishing bat species, one with bright orange markings. The discovery of this new breed was an unexpected one for bat conservationists, who are out looking for the endangered Lamott's roundleaf bat, known to only live in the Nimba Mountains. So when they came across an unfamiliar orange and brown bat that didn't look like any other species in the area, scientists were intrigued and puzzled. It took some time to study the bat's morphology and to determine how it used echolocation, a method where bats use sound to locate objects and travel safely. It's possible the old mining tunnels in the Nimba Mountains were the perfect hiding place to keep these bats a secret for all this time. Even the roundleaf bats, the same species researchers had been looking for when they made the discovery, are known to frequent these tunnels. So it is possible the Myotis nimbaensis may have been hiding out there too, just waiting to be found. Now it's up to scientists to continue their study of this new brightly colored species, to not only learn more about the animal, but to figure out how to preserve these places so animals can continue to thrive and contribute to the planet's biodiversity. Number 3. Earth's oldest material. Finding the oldest solid material ever discovered on Earth is amazing, but scientists didn't expect it to smell like rotting peanut butter. This astonishing discovery was made by curators at Chicago's Field Museum, who described the findings as solid samples of real stars, also known as stardust. The meteorite originally fell to Earth 50 years ago. It landed in Australia and was studied by scientists who determined the stardust had formed from 5 to 7 billion years ago. The dust, known as pre-solar grains, means they were formed from a time before the sun and the earth existed. Given the fact that the grains are about 2.5 billion years older than the solar system, the discovery is one that is incredibly important to the study of the cosmos. The extraordinary meteorite landed in the town of Murchison, Australia in September 1969. It has 90 different amino acids, only 19 of which are found here on Earth. It is something of a time capsule, trapping the grains of stardust inside and protecting them for billions of years where they remain unchanged, offering a glimpse into the history of the universe before the solar system existed. As experts continue to study the meteorite, maybe they'll also be able to figure out why it has that somewhat pungent smell like rotting peanut butter. Number 2. Newly discovered Egyptian temple. Experts working about 13 miles from the capital city of Cairo believe they have stumbled upon one of the famed temples built during the Old Kingdom to the Egyptian sun god Ra. But it wasn't an easy find. The temple was built by an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who ruled during the 5th dynasty. It was discovered under one of the other sun temples at Abu Ghurab. But why would the pharaoh build one temple on top of another? Was he trying to hide it, or was there something else inside the temple that he didn't want anyone to find? The Nusera Sun Temple was first uncovered by archaeologists back in 1898. A small part of a second mud brick structure was spotted underneath, but experts originally thought it was a previous building phase of the Nusera Temple. As modern excavations continued, researchers realized the underground structure was actually a completely different building to the Nusera Temple, one boasting stunning limestone columns, a portico, and an entrance. It was that monumental entrance that gave the hidden temple's secrets away, and when researchers went inside, they found hidden seals with the names of kings and dozens of vessels containing beer that dated to the mid-25th century BCE, which meant they were created long before the Nicera Temple's construction. Some of the jars also contain ritual mud that was used in religious ceremonies, possibly including the very ritual Nicera performed when he destroyed the original building to create his very own temple. The main purpose of such temples was for the pharaoh to legitimize his power and present himself as the only son of the sun god on Earth. Historical sources say there were a total of 6 sun temples built. Could that mean there are more treasures waiting to be unearthed? There's always something new to discover in Egypt, and with this discovery, archaeologists located a true lost treasure with the potential of more still waiting under the sand. Number 1. Silvercoin Horde. In the Bavarian city of Augsburg, Germany, archaeologists discovered a mysterious hoard of ancient silver coins. The coins were found in an old riverbed, known as denarii. The silver coins were the standard denomination used between the 1st to the early 3rd centuries when the Roman Empire ruled much of Europe. More than 5,500 coins were found, and experts think they were buried about 1,800 years ago next to a road outside of the Roman city of Augusta Vindelicum. Centuries later, it's possible they were scattered by a flood, lost in the riverbed amongst the river gravel. The hoard weighed in at 33 pounds and could be the largest single ancient Roman silver hoard ever found in Bavaria. Archaeologists also discovered weapons, tools, utensils, and jewelry along with the coins. The large cache and the value of the items leads experts to believe the items were once owned by someone of a higher social class. The coins depicted various rulers. Archaeologists noted that the oldest coin in the stash is 1,950 years old, from the reign of Emperor Nero. Interestingly, the Horde also had coins from the reign of Emperor Didius Julianus, who only ruled for 90 days, making them even more rare. At the time they were buried, Augusta Vindelicum was the capital city of the Roman province of Rhaetia, but that still doesn't reveal why the hoard of silver coins was buried in the first place. It's a mystery that researchers are trying to solve. Thanks for watching. Which one of these recent discoveries was the most exciting to you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. See you next time. Bye!